Hey everyone! I haven't done one of these in a while because I haven't had any new decks, but tonight I'm going to be doing another deck for you all. I actually haven't been able to play Magic as much as I'd like to over the last few months, which is why I haven't made any new decks, because I'm having a problem where I'm really stretched for the cards I'm using, but mana bases are hard and whatnot. But I have a couple more. I have this one and another one coming up soon, so look out for those. This one is Abzan Lifegain aggro. Abzan Lifegain big butts aggro. So it wants to gain a bunch of life, it wants to swing in with high toughness creatures, and things like that. So it is run by my hair, apparently. It's stuck in the middle of the deck. It's by two partner commanders. The first one is Timna the Weaver. She is 1 white-black for a 2/2 with lifelink, and at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may pay X life, where X is the number of opponents that were dealt combat damage this turn. If you do, draw X cards. So she wants you to be very aggressive and attack a bunch of people. It also gives it's good card advantage outlet, and she gives us access to white and black, two main colors of life gain. And then we have I will have it's still proxied. I actually haven't been able to go over to find one of her yet. I just need to probably just take the bus over to Ballard and pick one up at Card Kingdom, but I've been lazy and haven't done that. But this is Ikra Shidiki the Usurper. She's 3 black and green for a 3/7 with Menace, so nice there. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And also his partner, obviously, because they both have to have partner to be my commanders. So Oliver have Abacus to white, black, and green. So Abzan. And I was debating between what I wanted. I knew I wanted a life gain deck, but I didn't know which one I wanted to build. There's the standard, just white, black, Eiley or Karlov. Or you could always be that jerk and play Aloro. Recently there was Licia printed, but I don't know. I really liked green in its support for life gain because then it's lots of good sources of life gain, but there really aren't that many good because, but otherwise you'd want access to black, you want access to white, you don't want to play life gain deck and really not have those colors. So it was either Abzan or Abzan Plus. And I was just looking through the partner commanders because there wasn't any most of the other actual single Abzan commanders really aren't in the life gain camp. Then I looked at, but Ikra Shidiki and Timna the Weaver were there, and Ikra Shidiki really pushes a very specific style of play. And both of these are very push you towards this very aggressive in a very specific way play style. One thing that's really cool with what I've played for this deck so far is that it's really nice having that built-in card draw of Timna, and also since you're focusing more on the toughness side, people are more willing to let your creatures through because they're not taking that much damage and you're getting life, but it's not really affecting them that much. You get the guard all cards, and they let a lot of things through that they might not otherwise let through. So yeah, got my tea like always. Alright, so right before I recorded this, I immediately dropped the whole deck, and I kind of mostly sorted it again, because I spent the time before that sorting it. But no promises that there might be things randomly out of order, because I was oh yes, I shall now. It was testing my setup and everything. I'm okay, how does this look with the lighting and whatnot? And I immediately drop it, and it goes all over my lap and my bed. So that's fun. So, but first and foremost, we'll have our basic lands. I went boring and just grabbed some full arts I had because, I don't know, I was lazy and didn't want to, like, search for either Theros lands for Temna or Tarkir lands for Ikra, because they don't have those set aside, and I might eventually do that because I like having my lands on theme. Or I might not. Who knows? I'm a wild card. So, pretty standard array. This deck is heavily white, just because a lot of the good life game payoffs are in white. And I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 planes. Like I said, I'm running kind of stretched on my mana bases, so this isn't the best mana base in the world, but it gets the job done. Something caught in my throat there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 swamps. It uses black mana, but not to a huge extent. Excuse me. Lots of editing and post things. And 5 forests. I'm pretty sure I have more forests than this, so they're probably somewhere else. And then we go into our non-basic lands. Just click through. Alright. The forests are there somewhere. I think there's more. Oh, and always with all my deck decks, I will have a link to the tapped out list in the description if you want a more succinct and more organized list of all these things. Mana base, I mean, it's a pretty budget mana base, so Fortify Village is the shadow check land for white green, so you have to reveal plains or forests from your hand. I mean, honestly, it's not wonderful, honestly, but it gets the job done. Tranquil Expanse, it's just a tap land. Evolving Wilds, because I mean, it's more than 2 colors and it's a solid card. Command Tower, because I actually came across another Command Tower. Blighted Steppe. This is one of the utility lands from BFC, which it taps for colorless, but you can also play 3 in a white and sacrifice it to gain 2 life for each creature you control. So I mean, late game, I can gain a bunch of life. Because I usually do have a lot of creatures on board, but I mean, it just helps with that a bit. Selesnya Sanctuary is just the white-green bounce land. Forsaken Sanctuary, Orzhov tap line. Orzhov Basilica, and the Orzhov bounce land. It's pretty self-explanatory. Orzhov Guildgate, another tap land. Jungle Hollow, this is one of the Golgari life gain lands, which is, I mean, sure it's a tap land, but it has the upside of getting me life, which a lot of this deck actually cares about more than a lot of other decks might. I'd probably even run that cycle of lands in my deck, even without, just because they're good to have and they are relevant. Just tap land, another one of the life gain lands, the cycling land for Selesnya, the Sun Petal Grove, the new art. I love the Ixalan art for the new check lands. It's really nice. It's nice and tropical. And finally, the last life gain land of Blossoming Sands. So, I mean, pretty standard, budget 3-color mana base. Next up is Ramp. I just do for lands and spells, I usually do the standard 38 and 8, which is pretty much just standard across the board. And unless I have reason to go outside of that, I'll usually stick to that for ease of use. I haven't played enough of this deck enough to tell if I need to go up or higher, but it has a pretty standard mana curve. If anything, it's a little high, and I might want to add in a little bit more ramp. But especially since I'm low on green ramp, because I'm low on all my staples, because I make too many decks. First up is a bad ramp card. It's Natural Connection. It's just a green instant speed search for basic land. I mean, it being instant is relevant because I do also have a lot of things a lot of activated abilities that I can represent mana for, and just be able to keep that flexibility until the last moment is nice. Cryptolith Fragment. It's one of the Eldritch Moon flip cards. It enters tapped, but it can tap for any color mana, and it actually everyone loses 1 life whenever it attacks. And since I'm like gaining all this life, that one doesn't really affect me because I'm already gonna be ahead on the life spectrum and helps just wheel everyone down. And then the clause that flips it rarely happens because it requires everyone to have 10 or less life, which is rare for me because usually if I'm gonna die, usually the other people are doing well. But if it does flip over, it's actually very good in multiplayer where it's a 1/4 flying and death touch, which whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 3 life. So it's like pretty solid beater. Also, because of the clause in Ikrashidiki, I like to have high toughness creatures, and as you can see, this is a 1/4, which will be a common theme of high toughness creatures, or at least high relative to their power. Next up is an Orzhov Signet, because it was one of the few signets I still had, and I put it in the deck. Abzan Banner, because I mean, I'm in 3 colors, so I might as well run the banner. That's relevant. Since I don't have any more Selesnya signets, here's a Selesnya Cluestone. Soul Ring, because this is a commander deck, and why wouldn't you be running Soul Ring unless you're out of Soul Ring, which I am also currently out of right now. Commander Sphere, it taps for any color of your commander, so anything that's relevant, and you can sack it later. And finally, Dromoka's Monument, just mana rock that can turn into a dragon late game, which is sometimes relevant. I mean, if nothing else, it's a good late game mana sink to get just a 4/4 flyer when you need it. Alright, this next section is life gain, like the actual cards that will gain me life, which is kind of important for a life gain deck. I mean, Ikrashidiki already has like built-in life gain, but I mean, just things to get me more. One thing that this deck is looking to do is get little packets of life gain, because a lot of the payoff cards care not necessarily amount in the amount, but like instances of life gain. So it's less about like the huge amounts of life gain and more like little bits of life gain to make lots of triggers happen. So first off, we have Scholar of Aetherios. She's a 2 and a white for 1/4. You can pay 2 and a black to drain all your opponents for 1, so they lose 1 life and you gain that much. More importantly, she's a 1/4, so nice big butt. And also, I mean, late game, and also that is an tapped ability, so late game, it can be used to gain a fair amount of life and finish off opponents, if I don't have anything else to do with my mana. Retreat to Khazad-dû. It's one of the Battle for Zendikar retreat cards, where it just creates a landfall effect, and that's all it does. But more importantly, one of the landfall effects is you gain 2 life, but I can also put counters on things if I want to, whenever I landfall. So it's like a nice late game, okay, let's play the long game, this enchantment will make all my lands now into life gain instances. Next up is Zulaport Cutthroat. It's kind of like a aristocrat's idea, where whenever another creature I control dies, it drains all my opponents for 1. Jodi Afshoot, it's another landfall card that whenever enters battlefield under my control, I gain a life. So a lot of the little packets is what I'm going for. It's just Authority of the Consuls. I love this card. I put it in way too many decks. I mean, not too many, because it's just a good card. It causes creatures to enter tapped, which is relevant. But whenever a creature enters battlefield under my opponent's control, I gain 1 life. So it really penalizes my opponents for playing creatures and whatnot. Blood Artist. Whenever a creature dies, it drains 1 opponent for 1. Knight of Obligation. It's a 2/4 Vigilance, but it also is Extort. There's a lot of cards with Extort in this deck, which is Extort just means if you have a permanent with Extort and you cast a spell, you can pay either 1 white or 1 black, and if you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. So it essentially allows you to, as long as you have at least 1 permanent with Extort, you can pay a little more for your spells and get some life gain out of it. Next up is Sangromancer. So it's just a 3/3 flying, but whenever a creature my opponent controls dies, I gain 3 life, and whenever an opponent discards a card, which is less relevant, I mean, unless one of my opponents is also playing a discard deck and they're getting that, I also gain 3 life. So whenever my opponents have misfortune, I gain life. just a simple Soul Mender. It's 1 mana for a 1/1 that you can tap to gain a life. So this one's also nice because it's very controlled when I can have it if I have an effect that I specifically want to trigger at a specific time. Kumbal, Console of Allocation. He's a 2/3 for 3 with which the clause, whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life, and guess what? I gain 2 life. I don't know if you can notice, but there's like this recurring theme in this deck, which is all about me gaining life. This game's actually a solid amount, and also just like little tiny packets. It's hell to keep track of my life total. Aetherflux Reservoir. This is both a life gain spell and also a win condition, where whenever I cast a spell, I can gain 1 life for each spell I've cast this turn. Okay, solid. But I can also pay 50 life and do 50 damage to a creature or player. Like, if I can get to, like, safely to, like 60 or so life, I can just pretty much kill someone. So it's a nice in-game, like, laser beam that I can use to take out people. Blind Obedience. It's similar to Authority of the Consuls, but it causes artifacts and creatures in my opponent's field to enter tap like it does. But instead of getting life whenever they enter battlefield, it just has Extort. So it's another source of Extort. Next up is Falconrath Noble. It's just another one of those things where whenever a creature dies, it will drain an opponent for 1. So it's like Blood Artist and that sort of thing. Next up is Syndic of Tithes. It's just a 2-drop to lower my mana curve with Extort. Verdant Sun's Avatar from Ixalan. It's whenever it or another creature I control enters battlefield, I gain life equal to toughness, which I'm already going for high toughness creatures and stuff like that, and yeah, I mean, it helps with that. That's one thing that I do need for this deck, is I need a few bit more of the pushing the more high toughness side, because I don't really have as many as I'd like. Like, I want to get like some good tree folk in there, like things like Doran and things like that, just to push it a little bit more. Vampire Envoy, it's a 1/4 flying, so 1/4, I mean, that's good. Flying, evasive, so, and whenever it becomes tap, I gain a life. So whenever it attacks, and it often will get in, I'm gaining 5 life as long as Ikreshi out. Campaign of Vengeance, whenever a creature I control attacks, defending player loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Note that this doesn't say 1 or more, so it's a separate trigger for every single creature that attacks. So next up is Retreat to Hagra. It's just like the Retreat to Kazandu, except the more important phrase is that it drains for 1 instead of gaining me 2. So, still very good. Oresco Sun Guide. It's another just low 2-drop. It's a 2/2 for 2, so it's a bear that whenever it comes untapped, I gain 2 life. So, it's a nice early aggro card, and at late game it can drop block. Obelisk Spider from Hour of Devastation. It's more of a -1/-1 counter card, but it doesn't require you. It isn't. I'm not focused on that, but mostly it's a 3 mana 1/4, so nice, like, high toughness. With reach, and whenever it deals combat to a creature, put a -1/-1 counter on that creature. And whenever I do that, it drains 1. So the more important thing is whenever it deals damage, it drains 1. Which is what it wants to do. Pious Evangel. This is one of those flip cards from Shadows of Innistrad. So whenever in battlefield, it or another creature I control enters battlefield from my control, I gain a life. But I can also pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice another permanent, and I can transform it into Wayward Disciple, which is whenever it or another creature I control dies, it drains. So it turns into a Zulaport Cutthroat and whatnot, while being different on the back. Sun Scorch Region. First of all, it's a dragon, which is always good. Dragons are great. But whenever an opponent casts a spell, it gets a +1/+counter, and I gain a life. So it's nice, like the dual threat of it gets bigger, also it triggers all my life gain stuff. This next up is Tithe Drinker. It's a 2-drop with Extort and Lifelink. It's pretty straightforward. It does what it needs to do. And finally, Drana's Emissary. It's 2/2 flying for 3, but it just says at the beginning of my upkeep, it drains each opponent. So yeah. Alright. The next section is life gain payoffs. This is why we want to be gaining all this life. That said, though, like, life gain's one of those things where it's like kind of like self-evidence and its benefits. Like, gaining life is good because it makes you harder to kill, and these are just icing on the cake for all this other life gain I'm getting. First off is Blood Bond Vampire. Like, this doesn't seem like that impressive because it just says it's a 3/3 for 4 that whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. But like I said, you see, there's a lot of little individual packets of life gain I'm getting that oftentimes the first time this swings in the next turn after I play it, it can often be up to 8 power, and it only grows from there, and it has to be taken care of. Like, it doesn't seem assuming at first, but it can quickly get out of control with all the individual things that happen. Next up is Viscopa Guildmage. It's a 2-mana 2/2, but you can pay 1 and white-black to give a target creature a lifelink, which is sometimes relevant, but I don't really want to swing my mana that way. But the other one is 1 white-black, which is whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life, so it turns all my life gain also into drains. So, which also goes infinite with another one of the cards I have, which I'll just find right here, with, no, it doesn't. It doesn't go infinite. It's the other part. But another one is Sanguine Bond. It's a 5 mana that just has the second ability, which is whenever you gain life, each opponent loses that much life. There's also Exquisite Blood, but that card is like $25, and I don't have that money lying around. So, which is the opposite. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life, and do this with that, with this, or Viscopa Guildmage will go infinite, and all your opponents are dead. So, but those two do similar effects, but I mean, you can also stack them, so whenever you gain life, your opponent loses twice that much, if you have them both on the battlefield. Lone Rider, this one isn't as impressive as a lot of the payoffs, but it's a 2-mana first strike lifelink, and begin my end step if I gain 3 or more life this turn, which is not hard for this deck. Transform it, and it becomes a 4/4 first strike lifelink trample for 2 mana, which is usually online by turn 3. Or at least I can usually online by turn 4. But either way, it's a good beater. It's just a 4/4 first strike. It's just a good thing to dissuade aggression towards you, especially early game. Next up is Defiant Bloodlord, which just says whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So it's just like the Exquisite Blood, Viscopa Guildmage effect. So it turns all those little pings into damage sources. But that means it's also a 4/5 flyer, so it comes with a body, which is nice. Next up is one of the more disgusting cards in the deck. Archangel of Thune, All-Star of Magic 14. I have opened a total of 1 Magic 2014 pack. This is the most expensive card in the set. I opened this. So I'm not going to open up any more in 14 because it's only downhill from there. But it's a 5 mana 3/4 flying and lifelink, but whenever I gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. With all these little triggers, you can see how this can quickly get out of hand. Speaking of angels, we have Angelica Cord. At the beginning of instep, if I gain at least 4 more life, which is not hard, I make a 4/4 flying angel of flying. So that's a good way to do it. And also, if Egress are out, those 4/4 flying angels, whenever they do a combination player, will gain life equals toughness, which is 4, so they'll make another angel, so it can quickly spiral out of control. Well of Lost Dreams. Whenever I gain life, I can pay X, where X is the amount of life gained, and if I do, draw X cards, so it's a great card draw engine. Like, Tymna is already a card draw engine, so I don't actually have that much card draw in this deck, because my commander has it built in, but that's just a great engine that pretty much draws me as much cards as I have mana. Next up is the also subtle Valar Solver. It's a 6 mana 4/6 Vigilance and Lifelink, but at the beginning of my upkeep, if you have 40 more life, you win the game. It's subtle, but it often. Usually my opponents won't be able to get me to below 40 if I'm already above like 40. If I'm above 40, I'm usually well above 40, so usually it just means like, oh, do you have a removal or do I win? And finally, Cliffhaven Vampire, whenever I gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So it's like a lot of those other effects, but not as strong. But I mean, it's still a 2/4 flying for things, so it has a solid body. So, next section is benefits for having high toughness creatures. First up is just the standard assault formation, where it can be each creature you control assigns combat equal to its toughness rather than its power. So Cliffhaven Power is all of a sudden a 4/4, effectively. So, I mean, it pumps up. He's now dealing 7 damage. You can pay a green and let creatures of Defender attack. I'm not really using creatures of Defender because that just isn't what this text is looking to do. But you can also pay 2 in a green to give creatures you control +0/+1. So essentially +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's a solid effect. Behind the scenes, it's a little innocuous little enchantment from Shadows, which it gives creatures you control Skulk. Now, creatures of Skulk cannot be blocked with creatures of power greater than theirs. And since I usually actually have lower power creatures, and also with Timna, I need to get in, and Ikra, I need to get in and actually attack. Even though I'm only doing a little damage with my little low power creatures, it's still it's gonna help get them through. You can also pay 5 and give everything +1/+1 turn, but it's just so expensive you rarely do side effect. It's mostly the giving everything a Skulk, which on a lot of boards, unless they have tokens, will make everything unblockable. Next up is Sultai Flare, which is both life gain and big bot stuff, which is whenever your creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, you gain 4 life. So, it also combos well with the Angelica card, because it's a 4 toughness. If they die, they gain 4 life, and you get a new angel. Next up is Abzan Beastmaster. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have the creature tied or equal or the highest toughness, you draw a card. So it just gives you some nice like incremental card advantage. So usually it just means unless there's a Eldrazi Titan on the board, I'm drawing an extra card on my upkeep. And the next section is just removal and wipes and stuff. So standard stuff you'll include in any EDH deck. I am running low on like good removal and wipes, so this is kind of like stuff. But first up is Declaration Stone. It's just a 2-minute sorcery speed exile. It gets dropped on, gives the person a clue though, so they get the card back, but it deals with Titans and things like that. So next up is Sauron Grim Nemesis, who does a bunch of things. This is actually the first Planeswalker I ever opened, so a special place in my heart. So it's a 6-mana, 6 loyalty Planeswalker. You can +1 to essentially draw a card, and then each opponent, you reveal it, and each opponent loses life equals to its CMC. So, it's card draw. You can also -X to deal X damage to target creature or Planeswalker, and I gain X life, so life gain, removal. And if you can get it to the bottom, to the -9, put a number of 1/1 black vampire knight creature tokens of lifelink on the battlefield equal to the highest life total among all players. Which is, it will never get to that point, but if it does, I have so many vampires. Next up is Abzan Charm. It costs Abzan. So white, black, green, and it's a nice modal card that does a lot. Exile target creature power 3 or greater, which is, most of the stuff you're wanting to remove usually has higher power than that. Or you can just draw 2 cards and lose 2 life, or distribute 2 +1 punks counters on 1 or 2 creatures. So usually I'm using it for the first exile effect, but if I need to hit land drops or something, like it's card draw in a pinch. Next up is Cast Out, because it's just great. It's 4 mana for enchantment with flash that can hit non-land permanents and has cycling for white. So all things are good. For your 4 mana removal slot, it's really solid. Sure, it can be removed and they get the thing back, but even then you still got a 1/1. Gaze of Granite. It's a bad board wipe. It's controllable, where it's X black black green and destroy each non-land permanent for mana cost X or less. It's Ugin's -X. But if you're dealing with a token deck, it's a 3 mana destroy all tokens, so it can just wreck things like Krenko and things like that. Otherwise you can kind of pick at what point you want to clear everything out. So it isn't the be-all end-all board wipe, but it gets the job done. Next up is Divine Offering. It's 1 white for an instant that destroys target artifact. You gain life equal to its CMC. So, artifact removal, which is almost always relevant. I mean, if nothing else, you get to turn to hit their soul ranks that are not as far ahead. Dustodon. Its first one is destroy all creatures power 2 or 3 or greater. But a lot of my card creatures have powers like 1 and 2. Like, not all of them, but I mean, it'll hit a lot of things. And then on the other side, you can return them all those creatures of power 2 or less to your hand. So it recurs stuff as well as gets you, like, it's not quite a one-sided, but it'll hit a lot of their stuff, and it will keep a lot of your stuff. Appetite Fairly Natural is just a 3-mana instant naturalize effect, except it costs 1 more mana, but it gains you 2 life. So, I mean, honestly, naturalize honestly might be better, but I mean, I like it. It's on theme. Sylvan Reclamation. It's a 5 mana for exile 2 artifacts and or enchantments, so, I mean, good for removing just and permanently things you need to. But also it's basic land cycling for 2, so early game if I just need to hit a land drop, it's there. New from Exilon also is Settle the Wreckage, which is exile all creatures that target player controls. That player may search his library for many basic land cards. So it's essentially, for attacking creatures, it's mass path to exile. And I mean, it's not a white per se, but it's pretty close to one. Next up is Thorn of the Black Rose. Now we're into miscellaneous stuff, which is both just general high toughness creatures, as well as Monarch cards, because I love the Monarch mechanic, and I try to put them into every deck. And this one actually has a fair amount of Monarch stuff, and because my things are so evasive, it's easy for me to become the Monarch and get the Monarchy back. So next up is, first up is Thorn of the Black Rose. She's a 4-mana 1/3 with Death Touch, so not something they want to block usually anyway. And when you're in the battlefield, you become the Monarch. From Ixalan, Looming Altasaur, it's a 1/7. It's not fancy, but when it gets in, it gains me 7 life, so I'll take it. Protector of the Crown, it's a 6-mana 2/5. When you're in the battlefield, I become the Monarch, and all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to him instead, so it can also save you some damage and stuff. And finally, Palace Sentinels, it's a 4-mana 2/4 that makes you the Monarch on ETB. But yeah, so this is the deck. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a nice take on a life gain deck where I like the aggressiveness side of it, where a lot of life gain decks are really kind of like sitting back and just like letting your life gain accrue, and this one really just lets you be that more aggressive side, and you don't, being life gain also, you're not running the normal risk of leaving yourself open for attacks and stuff, and like having your life whittled away that way, because you're also gaining so much life. And it's a really fun deck. Like, the 2 commanders have everything you want built into it as your main life gain not your main, but one of your a good life gain enabler, and card draw on your commanders. I love the colors. I mean, it doesn't have blue, but I mean, we can't all be playing always blue. And I'm not playing Allura. I'm not that kind of person. But yeah, so, yeah, well, like I said, I'll put the link to the description, in the description, I'll put the link to the deck list if you're interested. And yeah, coming up soon, and then probably in the next couple weeks, one day I'll actually finish the deck. I'm putting together a Shu Yun deck, so that'll be fun. But until that time, I'll talk to you later, and I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. If you have any thoughts on it, let me know. Alright, I hope you sleep well. Alright.